Chase Langford was born into privilege, Brielle Donovan was chasing a dream, and when their worlds collided, it ended in a fire that shocked the nation. What started as a glamorous romance between a billionaire playboy and a hopeful young model spiraled into manipulation, fear, and a murder so calculated it stunned even the investigators. Beneath the luxury and filtered perfection was a brutal truth. Chase didn't just want out of fatherhood, he wanted her gone. Permanently. Chase Langford was the kind of man people love to envy. Raised in the sun-drenched hills of Malibu, his life was wrapped in luxury from the moment he was born. His father owned one of the largest hotel chains in the country, and his mother was a former beauty queen turned philanthropist. Chase grew up in private schools, attended exclusive parties, and never knew a day without privilege. By his late 20s, he had already cemented a reputation as Los Angeles' most notorious playboy. With a jawline that seemed chiseled from stone and an Instagram feed full of fast cars and exotic getaways, Chase had millions of followers who praised his lifestyle. Every night seemed like a celebration: rooftop parties, bottle service, and a rotation of models by his side. People called him charming, carefree, magnetic. But there were whispers too, rumors of his temper, of assistants quitting without notice, of ex-girlfriends who disappeared from social circles without a word. Despite being the heir to a billion-dollar fortune, Chase showed little interest in business. He skipped meetings, ignored emails, and let others handle the operations of the hotel empire. What he did care about was control. His social media was carefully curated, every post designed to project power and envy. He hated being told no, and was known to lash out when things didn't go his way. To the public, it was written off as youthful arrogance. Behind closed doors, it was something more dangerous: entitlement without boundaries. It was at a luxury fashion event in West Hollywood where Chase met Brielle Donovan. She was new to Los Angeles, just 24, and trying to break into modeling. Originally from Portland, Oregon, Brielle had moved to the city with little more than a suitcase and a dream. She was striking, tall, graceful, with a quiet elegance that made her stand out in the chaotic world of fashion. Chase noticed her instantly. By the end of the night, she was in his VIP section, sipping champagne and smiling for selfies she wouldn't post. Within days, they were inseparable. Chase flew her to Paris on a whim. He filled her apartment with roses. Soon, she had moved into the guesthouse behind his Malibu estate. For a while, it looked like a fairy tale, but things began to shift just weeks into the relationship. Brielle stopped attending castings. Friends said she became harder to reach, her replies short and often delayed. She posted less online. Some thought she was just enjoying her new life of luxury, but those closest to her felt something was off. She seemed nervous, distant, almost like she was walking on eggshells. Chase, on the other hand, continued his public appearances, always alone, always smiling. No one knew what was really happening behind the gates of his sprawling mansion overlooking the ocean. No one suspected that the man who seemed to have it all was already planning to destroy the life of the woman who trusted him most. The pregnancy changed everything. Brielle had always wanted to be a mother someday, but she hadn't expected it to happen so soon, and definitely not under these circumstances. When the test came back positive, she sat in silence for a long time. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and strange hope. She imagined the baby, tiny, innocent, growing inside her, and wondered if this would bring stability to her chaotic relationship with Chase. She didn't tell him right away. She waited, unsure of how he would react. The man who had once flown her across the world on a whim now seemed distracted, irritable, and cold. He barely noticed her at dinner, his phone always in his hand, his attention somewhere else. When she finally told him the truth, his reaction confirmed her worst fears. Chase didn't yell. He didn't argue. He simply stared at her in silence, got up from the couch, and walked out of the room. The next day, her credit card stopped working. The following week, her phone plan was cancelled. He accused her of trying to trap him, of ruining his life. In public, nothing changed. Chase still smiled for paparazzi cameras and posted flashy reels from clubs and car shows. But at home, he became a ghost. He wouldn't look at her. He wouldn't speak unless it was to belittle her. Brielle had become invisible in her own life. She reached out to her sister back in Oregon, sending short voice notes late at night when Chase was asleep. She said she was scared, that she wasn't allowed to leave the property without him knowing. She didn't have access to money and couldn't call an Uber. He had installed cameras around the house, and though he said they were for security, she couldn't shake the feeling she was being watched. She mentioned that Chase had started drinking more, alone, heavily, often until morning. She wanted to leave, but she didn't know how. The isolation was suffocating. Her friends had stopped calling. Most of them thought she was living her dream life in a Malibu mansion. No one knew what was really happening. Then, she went missing from social media completely. Her Instagram account vanished. Her modeling profile was taken down from her agency's website. Emails to her bounced back. Even her phone stopped receiving messages. Her family became concerned. Her sister reported her missing to local police, but with no physical evidence of abuse and no official crime, there was little they could do. Chase told anyone who asked that she had gone back home to be with family. But her family knew that was a lie. She hadn't come home. She hadn't even packed. The last time anyone heard her voice was in a 3-minute audio message to her sister, where she whispered, "If something happens to me, don't believe it was an accident." Then, silence. That was the moment the world began to realize that something was terribly wrong. It was just past midnight when a 911 call came in reporting a fire in the hills above Malibu. A passing driver had noticed thick black smoke and flames rising from a turnout near a cliffside road. When firefighters arrived, they found a black SUV fully engulfed in flames, the heat so intense it had warped the metal frame. The vehicle had no license plates visible, and the windows had exploded from the pressure. Once the fire was extinguished, crews discovered a body in the passenger seat, burned beyond recognition. It was a disturbing scene, too clean to be an accident, too violent to be a suicide. The only clue was a red plastic gas can tossed a few feet away in the brush and a shattered smartphone screen face down in the dirt. The area was immediately secured, and investigators arrived within the hour. The fire had destroyed almost everything inside the car, but a VIN check revealed it belonged to Chase Langford. News of the incident spread quickly, and by morning, headlines speculated that the Playboy heir had been in a tragic accident. Chase, however, was nowhere near the scene. His attorney released a statement saying he was at home asleep at the time of the fire. But when detectives tried to reach him, he didn't respond. It took nearly 2 days before he agreed to speak with police. His demeanor was calm, even cold. He said he had loaned the car to a friend and didn't know where it had gone. Within a week, forensic investigators confirmed the worst. The body in the car was Brielle Donovan. Her dental records matched, and so did a small tattoo on her ankle. That survived the fire. Even more shocking was the autopsy report. Brielle had suffered blunt force trauma to the back of her head before the fire started. She was unconscious, maybe even dead, when the flames were lit. Her lungs contained no smoke, meaning she hadn't been breathing when the fire consumed the car. This wasn't an accident. It was murder. Detectives found security footage from a nearby gas station showing Chase purchasing gasoline and a red plastic canister less than 5 hours before the fire. His phone's GPS data placed him within half a mile of the canyon turnout that night. Yet he insisted he had nothing to do with it. His lawyer claimed he was being targeted because of his fame. But as the investigation deepened, more inconsistencies emerged. Brielle's bank accounts had been frozen. Her phone records showed multiple missed calls to Chase in the days leading up to her death. And then there was the note, a crumpled piece of paper found in her bedroom that simply read, "If I disappear, look at him." Authorities now believed the fire wasn't just to destroy the body, it was to erase everything. Evidence, identity, the truth. But Chase had made mistakes. He left a trail of digital footprints and physical clues. The man who had always lived above consequence was about to face the truth of what he had done. And the world, watching in disbelief, would soon see the fall of Malibu's golden boy. As the investigation intensified, detectives began piecing together the final days of Brielle Donovan's life. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that her death had been meticulously planned. Chase Langford, once untouchable, was now a suspect in a murder that shocked the city. His carefully curated life of luxury was unraveling. Behind the glamorous facade was a man consumed by fear of scandal, fear of responsibility, and most of all, fear of losing control. When Brielle refused to terminate the pregnancy and made it clear she would keep the child, Chase saw only one way out. He didn't want a custody battle. He didn't want his reputation tainted by a paternity scandal. In his world, perception was everything, and Brielle was a threat to the perfect image he had worked so hard to create. Detectives obtained a warrant for his electronics. What they found was a damning trail of searches, deleted messages, and incriminating voice memos. Just days before Brielle's death, Chase had looked up How to Destroy a Body in a Fire, Can Pregnancy Affect DNA Testing, and How to Make a Murder Look Like a Car Accident. His private notes contained lists labeled Problems and Solutions. Brielle's name was written under both. Investigators also found surveillance footage showing her leaving the estate with him on the night she died. Her posture was tense, her arms crossed. She never returned. Then came a breakthrough. Chase's personal assistant, a woman named Lacey Ward, walked into the police department unannounced. She was visibly shaken, carrying a brown folder full of printed emails, screenshots, and recordings. Lacey had worked for Chase for over 3 years. She had seen everything: the tantrums, the manipulation, the way people around him were discarded when they no longer served a purpose. She said she hadn't come forward earlier out of fear, but Brielle's death had haunted her. Inside the folder were text messages where Chase referred to Brielle as dead weight and said she was cornering him. One message read, "She's already destroyed my peace. I'll make sure she doesn't destroy my future." Even more damning were voice memos Chase had sent Lacey in the weeks leading up to the fire. In one, he talked about making a clean break and how some messes have to be handled in silence. His tone was calm, as if discussing a business deal rather than someone's life. The recordings painted a chilling picture. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was methodical, calculated, and deliberate. Prosecutors quickly moved to charge Chase with first-degree murder and arson. The media exploded with coverage. Paparazzi camped outside the courthouse. Commentators debated whether justice would be served or if money would protect him once again. But the evidence was overwhelming. For the first time in his life, Chase Langford was no longer in control of the narrative. The man who had lived above the law was now facing it head-on, and every lie he had built his life on was beginning to collapse. The trial of Chase Langford became one of the most watched cases in recent memory. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and those who had followed every detail of the investigation. Chase arrived each day in a tailored suit, expression blank, his once confident posture now stiff and calculated. His legal team spared no expense, bringing in high-profile attorneys and expert witnesses, all aiming to create doubt in the minds of the jurors. They argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that Brielle's death was a tragic accident or even a suicide, and that Chase was being targeted because of his wealth and fame. But beneath their carefully rehearsed arguments lay a case built on undeniable proof and cold, damning facts. The prosecution methodically laid out their timeline. They presented the gas station footage of Chase buying the fuel container. They played the voice memos, allowing the courtroom to hear his emotionless planning in his own words. The assistant's testimony was powerful, steady, believable, and deeply unsettling. She described a man obsessed with image and control, someone who viewed people as obstacles to be removed when convenient. The jury saw the messages where he spoke about Brielle with chilling detachment, calling her the storm before the silence and declaring, "One night and it's all behind me." Every sentence dug deeper into the image of a man who had gone to horrifying lengths to erase a mistake he refused to own. Brielle's family sat in the front row, silent and composed, holding a framed photo of her smiling. They listened as forensic experts detailed the brutality of her final moments, how she had been struck on the head, how she had not inhaled smoke, how the fire was deliberately set to destroy her completely. The autopsy confirmed she had been 6 months pregnant. Her unborn child was given a name in court, Aiden. It was a name Brielle had once whispered to her sister in a voice message, hoping for a future she would never see. In the end, the jury took less than 2 hours to reach a verdict. Chase Langford was found guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, murder of an unborn child, and arson. The judge, unmoved by his defense, sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He showed no emotion as the sentence was read. No tears. No words. Just silence. Outside the courthouse, Brielle's mother gave a brief statement. She said justice had been served but that no punishment could bring her daughter back. She spoke of Brielle's kindness, her dreams, her excitement about becoming a mother. She asked the world to remember her not as a victim, but as a vibrant young woman full of life and hope. The story of Brielle Donovan became more than a cautionary tale. It became a symbol of how power can be abused and how even the most polished lives can hide the darkest secrets. The rich playboy who had once lived above consequence now sat behind bars, his empire reduced to ashes, his legacy forever scarred by the fire he used to bury the truth.